Thank you so much for joining us today. My name's Melissa Chapman, and I'm pleased to be the Vice President this year for the 100th Battle of Flowers Oratorical Contest. 6 Flags of Texas, centuries of history, and 100 years of storytelling. At this time, I will announce the names of the 5 finalists of the Oratorical Contest. Please stand at your seat when your name is called and remain standing until all the names are announced. In accordance with our contest rules, the afternoon speeches will be presented in reverse order from this morning. I will call out your names in the order in which you will deliver your speeches. Caitlin Schinkel, Baylor University. Susie Brewer, Texas Christian University. Colleen Wyrick, Texas Christian University. Jane Ann Carroll, Abilene Christian University. And Jacqueline Garcia Torres, Abilene Christian University. Congratulations to all of you. You may be seated. And I would like to now recognize the 5 other contestants who delivered their speeches during the preliminary round. Today, you've shown a light on significant figures and events that have shaped Texas' journey throughout its history under 6 Flags. You all deserve commendation for the research and effort you've put into preparing for this contest. We had a large pool of applicants. We actually had 32 students apply this year, which is coincidentally the exact same number that entered in our very first contest in 1926. The very fact that you were chosen to attend today and to be in this competition speaks a lot about you. I feel sure that this contest will be a stepping stone for great success in your future. As your name is called, please come forward to receive your $250 check and a small gift. Betsy Zachary, our president, will hand these out. Theodore Jackson, Texas State University. Maya Adahikari, Rice University. Congratulations. Crystal Polglaze, Texas Christian University. Gilbert Ortega, Texas Tech University. And Tabitha Hidalgo, the University of North Texas. If we could give these accomplished students one more round of applause. We will now take a moment to give our finalists a minute or two to prepare. While they do that, I would like to recognize the amazing women on the Oratorical Committee this year who've worked especially hard to put this 100th event together. Would you all please stand and be recognized? The talent and commitment of this group is truly amazing, and without them, we would not have had as an outstanding event as we have here today. So thank you very much, ladies. We will now begin the final round with a new panel of distinguished judges who will be introduced at the conclusion of this round. As a reminder, contest rules dictate that each speech should be original, historically accurate, between 10 and 12 minutes in length, and delivered from memory, with the intent to inform and educate the audience. There will be a short pause between speeches to provide our judges time to record their assessments. Judges, if you will please indicate to me when you are ready to proceed by raising your paddles. Between contestants, if the audience will please only speak in whispers, We ask that no one exit or enter the room except during the 3-minute pause between our speakers. Now I ask if everybody would please check your cell phones and make sure that they're either turned off or on silent. Thank you. Caitlin, are you ready to begin? All right. Please welcome our first speaker, Caitlin Schinkel from Baylor University. Thank you.
March of 1836 was a month of fire and fury. Cannons roared, bold declarations were made, flags rose and fell, each event a thunderclap in the storm that shook Texas' independence. Day 2. Boom! Delegates at Washington on the Brazos signed the Texas Declaration of Independence, creating the Republic of Texas, at least on paper. Day 6. Boom! The Alamo falls to the Mexican army under General Santa Anna, and Texas seemed about to be taken in its entirety. However, this is Texas. We don't go out without a fight. Sam Houston and what was left of Texas forces held off Santa Anna's troops in order to give women and children time to relocate eastward. Day 19. Boom! The Battle of Coleto Creek led to the eventual surrender of James Fannon's men near Goliad to Mexican General Jose de Urrea. Fannin and his 350 men were attempting to retreat from Goliad to join Sam Houston's forces, but surrendered believing that they'd be treated humanely as prisoners of war. Day 27. Boom! The massacre at Goliad. Mexican General Urrea was determined to treat the captives according to traditional rules of warfare, but received orders from Mexican General Antonio Lopez de Santa Anna to execute them. James Fannon's men were shot, sending shockwaves throughout the countryside. It now became clear that the Mexican general's plan was to use a terror campaign to put an end to the Texas Rebellion and the dream of a republic. By the end of this historic and terrible month, the promise of independence had turned, at least temporarily, to a nightmare. Cries could be heard spreading the news as people moved from town to town delivering this message. Men needed to leave their families in order to fight. Women, children, and elderly needed to flee. After all, home is not a house, it is a family. Brave fighters wanted to have a home to come back to. So, it's time to fight, but for families, it's time to flee. The Mexican army was on the hunt and headed their way. The Runaway Scrape is a lesser-known but powerful episode of the Texas Revolution that profoundly impacted Texas' identity and resilience. Though often overlooked because of the famous battles, the Runaway Scrape was an important moment of Texas history, exemplifying courage, unity, and perseverance that still resonates in the spirit of Texas to this day. Stephen Hardin, noted Texas historian and retired professor at Abilene's McMurray College, has just published one of his major works, Texian Exodus, the Runaway Scrape and its enduring legacy. In his closing chapter, he writes the following, quote, "Fewer than 1,000 of Houston's soldiers fought on April 21st, yet the frantic exodus upset the lives of virtually every Texian, along with many Tejanos and most slaves as well. Thus, as a formative experience, it had even more impact than San Jacinto did. For the civilians who had witnessed their lives unsettled, their families imperialed, and their homesteads ransacked or burned, the Runaway Scrape was the main event." End quote. After the fall of the Alamo and the massacre at Goliad, word spread quickly that Santa Anna was on a mission of destruction. Settlers were forced to leave behind cherished possessions, homes, and livestock in their hurry to escape, temporarily severing ties with their previous lives. Lisa Waller-Rogers is the editor of 2003 book, Remember the Alamo, the Runaway Scrape Diary of Belle Wood's Austin's Colony. In it, Belle Wood commented, quote, "Leaving everything we have ever worked for is just too sad for words." End quote. Forced to leave her home, Belle felt a deep sense of longing for the familiar comfort of her life before the revolution. During the Exodus, a nightmare took over that consisted of hardships, suffering, and casualties, but Belle clung to hope that Texas would gain its independence and her family would be reunited and able to rebuild their lives soon, bringing a sense of grief and uncertainty. Along the journey, settlers were forced to endure treacherous days of walking through deep, muddy trails, sweeping rivers, and densely packed forest without sufficient rest or proper footwear. Torrential downpour made the nights unbearable, as settlers were forced to sleep in cold, wet conditions. This physical toll burdened Texians, but they persevered. With only scraps of food salvageable, many settlers had gone hungry for long periods of time, weakening their ability to continue on the journey and opening them up to more diseases. Linda English, associate professor of history at the University of Texas Rio Grande Valley, writes that measles, sore eyes, whooping cough, and cholera spread quickly throughout the camps, making the trip arduous on young travelers. Such diseases unfortunately took lives throughout the journey. During this chaotic time, where people did not even know if they would have a physical home to come back to, families are being torn apart, either through death, separation during the escape, or enlistment in the Texian army, creating a sense of grief and uncertainty. Bell, along with many others, was forced to mourn the loss of friends and neighbors who died from illness, exhaustion, or violence, bringing a raw emotional depth to the exodus. Through Bell's story, we can learn about how women and children took on unexpected roles during the runaway scrape. Women were considered the backbone of the journey, becoming leaders and taking charge in the absence of men, making tough decisions for the survival of many. Children were set into a world of chaos where nothing made sense as their whole life was being taken from them. They were forced to face the harsh realities of endurance as they were met with confusion and chaos. Through Bell's diary vividly describes the constant fear of Mexican soldiers and the looming presence of death. Jan Rain, former senior editor of Texas Monthly, writes that the settlers believed that Santa Anna would kill them all. Hadn't he ordered the execution of more than 300 prisoners at Goliad? End quote. Bell battled between her fear of Santa Anna's soldiers and her desire to stay strong for her family, giving us insight into the internal struggle many Texians were facing. The constant fear of Santa Anna's army catching up to them created a pervasive atmosphere of panic, leading to sleepless nights and mental strain. For the civilians who suffered the larger things, the individuals behind the larger historical events emphasize the personal cost of Texas' fight for independence. Moments of bravery shine through, such as settlers banding together to help the sick or defending one another from threats, demonstrating that heroism can come from unexpected places. While some people express unwavering support for the Texian cause, others question the sacrifices required, adding nuance to the portrayal of how war impacts people differently. The hardships endured during the runaway scrape became part of the collective memory of Texas, symbolizing settlers' resilience and contributions to independence. Sidney St. James, a popular American novelist, published in 2020, The Rose of Bray's Bayou. This novel tells the story of DeLu Rose Harris, a pioneer and memoirist on her journey during the runaway scrape. Sidney St. James wrote that people began to grapple with their faith, often questioning why God allows so much suffering while relying on prayer and community to sustain their faith. Maggie DeLu's sister admits that, quote, "I lost my faith for a short while, but I have got it back. I will be strong. We must be strong. So many people need our help to get through this. God is with us," end quote. During DeLu's battle with hardship, she and her mother engaged in a conversation that rings true for Texans. Her mother's words, quote, "If we continue to have faith and believe in Jesus Christ who died so that we may live, our chances, I think, are much better. We will survive another day," end quote. DeLu's response shows her resilience. Quote, "I have faith, mother," end quote. Stephen Franklin Sparks was another young witness to the bravery of those who helped lead so many to safety across the Sabine River. Quote, "The streams were all overflowed, and the bottomlands were from a foot to waist deep in water. The younger and stouter women would take the feeble ones on their backs and shoulders and wade through the water to dry land, set them down, and then go back for another load, and continue until all were over. There was no one who could do justice for the women of that time. God bless the women of Texas," end quote. Stephen Hardin tells the story of Katherine Jennings, mother of four, who lost her husband Gordon at the Alamo. At 56 years old, Gordon Jennings was the oldest of the defenders in battle. To make matters worse, she lost her next closest relative, Charles, at the massacre at Goliad. Though she wanted to stay with her home on the Colorado River, she was forced to make the difficult decision to flee. Those arrangements were made especially difficult as she was caring for her daughter-in-law who had just given birth. But she also worried that her friends at the nearby Barton Creek had not heard of Santa Anna's March and would also need to flee. So she sent daughter, Katie, 10-year-old, on horseback to ride the 40 miles to Barton Creek and back. Katie successfully warned the Barton Creek settlers, and they all joined the flight to cross the Sabine River to safety. The need to secure conditions for the safe return of family members instilled intense determination within Texian forces. The cry throughout the countryside was, "Remember the Alamo! Remember Goliad!" This is the kind of determination that resulted in the victory at the Battle of San Jacinto in April of 1836. Following that victory, the Republic of Texas existed not only on paper, but also as a reality on the ground. The runaway scrape symbolizes our identity as Texans. It is a story of hope, courage, God, and resilience. The runaway scrape was not just an escape eastward. It was a movement for freedom, showing our strength and perseverance as a young republic. As Texans, we have a tendency to glorify the victories that secured our independence. That is natural and worthy, but we tend to forget the personal and family sacrifices that were associated with that victory. War is often necessary, but it is messy and cruel. The history of the runaway scrape helps us remember that. Thank you.
Judges, if you'll record your notes. Okay, we'll now introduce our second speaker today is Susie Brewer from Texas Christian University. Her speech is Centuries of Chile, Texas Spirit and Heritage Through the Lens of Tex-Mex.
Every proud Texan knows about the brave men and women who defended the Alamo, the ambitious Texans who sent a man to the moon, the cowboys with their trusty steeds and cattle, and of course, the significance of the oil industry on Texas economics. But today, I'm going to tell a story of something so vital and significant that it connects together the identities of all Texans across the Lone Star State and reminds us of the heritage that has shaped Texas's journey. When the temperature begins to drop and the air becomes chilly, there's no better feeling than walking into your home to be greeted by the rich and savory, aromatic combination of peppers, onions, meat, and spices. Home-cooked chili. Almost every Texan has a memory associated with this iconic dish. Whether a remarkable Cowboys Super Bowl win, a heartwarming chili cook-off for charity, or a nostalgic day in fall. My family even has a generational connection. My grandmother used to make a post-Sunday church chili lunch each week for my dad and his siblings, and my dad continued this tradition throughout my childhood as well. The roots of this iconic dish that never includes beans can be traced back to a group of Mexican, Mexican-American, and indigenous women known as the Chili Queens. These women brought the dish to the streets of downtown San Antonio in the mid-19th century and unintentionally created the Tex-Mex cuisine that we know and love today. Not only did chili transform the state and the country, but this warm and familiar recipe helped to create the welcoming, friendly, and inviting nature that the Lone Star State offers. Texas identity is inherently shaped by food, like the Chili Queen's chili, as it pays homage to the centuries of rich Mexican culture that have left an indelible mark on this region. Journalist Alistair Cook once stated that Texas does not, like any other region, simply have indigenous dishes. It proclaims them. In fact, Texas legislature proclaims in Texas House Concurrent Resolution number 18 from 1977 that one cannot be a true son or daughter of this state without having his taste buds tingle at the thought of the treat that is real, honest to goodness, unadulterated Texas chili. We Texans have always had a knack for good storytelling. Today, we will explore the legacy of the Chili Queens through the history of their introduction of chili, to how their emergence in San Antonio in the 1880s permanently transformed the spirit and identity of Texas, and how the economic impacts of Tex-Mex cuisine can still be seen across Texas today. The 19th century was a time where Spain, Mexico, the Republic of Texas, the United States, and the Confederacy all hoisted their flag for some time above the Texas terrain. But in the mid-19th century, where horses and wagons were the primary modes of transportation, and the economy was based on trading goods, Mexican-American women saw a business opportunity. These women would cook at home and then haul these dishes and meals to downtown plazas like the Military Plaza and the Alamo Plaza and set up open-aired shops. A 2015 historical fiction novel, Chili Queens, Mi Historia, by Marian L. Martinello, paints a picture of a plaza and describes the aromas that might fill the air. Simmering chili, stewing beans, grilling corn tortillas, steeping coffee, flaming mesquite fires. These enticing smells lured people of all different backgrounds to come and experience the warmth and depth of Mexican culture. And these meals, they told a story of hardship, ambition, innovation, resilience against the norms, and self-made opportunity right in the middle of downtown. Though various scholars point to various start dates for the reign of the Chili Queens, the first print description of chili con carne can be found in Stephen Gould's 1882 The Alamo City Guide that states, "Those who enjoy the Mexican luxuries that are tamales, chili con carne, and enchiladas can find them here, in the open air, behind the tables, served by lineal descendants of the ancient Aztecs." The Chili Queens had probably been established for several years at this point, growing in popularity with the addition of the Texas Mexican Railway, which was completed between 1875 and 1885, according to the Texas State Historical Association. While many in the community enjoyed the products made by the Chili Queens, they still faced setbacks and hardships, such as a new city hall building being built right in the middle of the Military Plaza, and World War I permanently transforming San Antonio into a powerful military training city. Ultimately, the Chili Queens met their demise due to a series of new health and food safety regulations that required these outdoor air markets to be, well, indoor structures. This 60-year reign of the Chili Queens not only introduced chili to the masses, but it left a permanent mark on Texas. The Chili Queens did so much more than just bring delicious food. They redefined the culture of the city and the state. Texas became a place of celebration, community, and entrepreneurship. Much like their signature dish, the Chili Queens created a cultural stew by creating a warm, welcoming, and fun environment that brought together people of all different nationalities and backgrounds. Historian Lewis Fisher, in a 2023 Texas Public Radio article, said that you could have a well-dressed banker standing next to a street worker, all waiting in line for the same food. Chili con carne was the equalizer. No matter what walk of life, there was a place for you, eating chili, under the wide and high prairie sky. Graciela Sanchez, whose great-grandmother was a Chili Queen, said that everything you ever needed or wanted could probably be found here. Musicians and singers filled the stands, politicians debated, and people read newspapers out loud to the crowds. Food journalists wrote enticing articles that nudged even more people to come visit Texas and experience the rich Mexican culture. As people entered the city and traversed through the markets, they were each met with the sights, sounds, and smells that told a story of Texas and Texans. Through the introduction of cultural fusion dishes like chili con carne, the Chili Queens created Tex-Mex cuisine, with many Texans able to reap financial benefits. According to University of Texas at San Antonio professor Felix D. Almaraz Jr., in a 2004 NPR podcast, he describes the impact the Chili Queens had on the identities of Texans. They were entrepreneurs. They were business ladies. And it's this entrepreneurial spirit that can still be seen across Texas today. In 1893, chili con carne made its official debut to the rest of the nation at the Chicago World's Fair at a San Antonio chili stand. Introducing this meal to the North created a hunger for more accessible and available Tex-Mex cuisine. According to History.com, around the same time as the World's Fair, Willie Gebhardt started selling his famous Gebhardt's Eagle chili powder. It was his own chili powder, a mix of ground-up ancho chilies, oregano, cumin, and black pepper. It was a way for those to enjoy Tex-Mex cuisine, even in regions where these spices didn't naturally grow. A way to share Texas love and Texas culture through seasonings. But the impacts of the Chili Queen don't stop there. According to Sarah Ramirez from St. Mary's University, in 1932, Elmer Doolin created a Tejano snack inspired by the grilling corn tortillas, which he called Fritos. In addition, San Antonio became the birthplace for the very first Pace Picante sauce. But the economic impacts don't stop there. The open-air markets where the Chili Queens lived out their livelihoods laid the groundwork for the modern-day food truck industry that many Texans and Americans have grown to love. Parks, concert venues, and football tailgates wouldn't be the same without access to delicious, transportable food. Rob Walsh, in his 2004 cookbook, The Tex-Mex Cookbook, describes Tex-Mex cuisine as America's oldest regional cuisine. But many native Texans will tell you it's the greatest, due to the rich legacy left by the Chili Queens so many years ago. This 60-year reign that humbly started due to the inventiveness and ingenuity of these Mexican-American Chili Queens who brought chili con carne to mainstream culture, irrevocably transformed the spirit of Texas into an inclusive, welcoming, diverse, literal melting pot of culture, people, and ideas. And the legacy of the Chili Queens can still be seen today through the existence of Tex-Mex cuisine on a national level, through commercialized products like chili powder, and of course, through annual events like the Chili Queens Chili Cook-Off. So the next time that you enjoy a nice, warm, delicious pot of chili, remember the Chili Queens.
Please welcome our third contestant, Colleen Wyrick from Texas Christian University. Her speech is Remembering Clara Driscoll, How One Woman Turned a Texas Tragedy into Legend.
There is a difference between a story and a legend. A simple story can be whispered around campfires or skimmed over in a book. It can hold meaning, it can entertain, it can teach, certainly. But stories lack roots. They evolve over time, changing, and left up to interpretation by the modern mind. A legend transcends time. It is an immovable mountain, a moment preserved in amber, a picture painted and passed down 1,000 times over without losing its color. Texas has no greater legend than the Alamo. Every single person in this room could recite the tale from memory. The significance it holds to our state, to our people, almost 200 years later, has not wavered. However, without the loving dedication of one woman, one legendary woman, the very structure of the Alamo may never have existed as we know it today, and the legend we cling to so dearly may have faded alongside it. Clara Driscoll, born in 1881, is responsible for the preservation of the Long Barrack and the San Antonio de Valero Mission, colloquially known as the Alamo. Today, I want to share a story with you, Clara's story, a tale that resonates with resilience, amplifies ambition, and shows staggering spirit, a tale enveloped by her statement, by the care of our eloquent yet voiceless monuments. We are preparing a noble inspiration for our future. Today, we will explore Clara's early upbringing, a childhood deeply rooted in travel and education, her tireless commitment to maintaining the sanctity of Texas historical sites, and ultimately, her lasting impact on the state as we know it. While 6 flags have flown over Texas, one legend made possible by Clara Driscoll, transcends them all, reminding Texans today of the valor and sacrifice that remain a cornerstone of our identity. Clara's family history shaped her early years, forming not only her connection to Texas, but laying the groundwork for her passion for preservation. Her grandfather, Daniel O'Driscoll, immigrated to Texas from Ireland, and in 1836 joined Sam Houston's army. He fought valiantly at the Battle of San Jacinto, after which he was gifted 1,200 acres of land in Refugio County. His son, Robert Driscoll, turned the ranch into a profitable banking and commercial business. It was to this thriving, multi-million-dollar establishment that Clara was born on April 2nd, 1881, according to a May 2023 KRIS 6 news feature titled In Search of Clara Driscoll. Thus, Clara lived a life of comparable privilege, and as a girl, dreamed of being a playwright. Ever the doting father, Robert invested heavily in Clara's education to accomplish that dream. According to the Texas State Historical Association's biographical entry on Clara, she attended the best Texas private schools and eventually traveled to New York City and France to obtain a global perspective. Ironically, being thousands of miles from her home in St. Mary, Texas, sparked Clara's dedication to historical preservation down south after seeing the benefits of such efforts on modern generations. She returned home at the age of 18, invigorated with the idea of bringing her learnings to fruition. And so, after traveling over land and sea, experiencing all the wealthy world had to offer, Clara's legend begins exactly where her grandfather fought more than 60 years prior: the Alamo. The Alamo, in Clara's perspective, had fallen into a state of extreme disrepair due to commercial establishments and a lack of historical recognition. She believed the site was truly the shrine of Texas independence and refused to allow either the church or the Long Barrack to be consumed by commercialization, according to the Humanities Texas site. However, by 1861, Alamo Plaza was already the site for a market house. Records indicate that the plaza contained a flurry of activities, from the constant traffic of horses and wagons transporting goods to crowds of customers going stall to stall. The only structures that remained of the original Mission and Fort compound by 1877 were the church and Long Barrack, according to an article on the Alamo's official historical page, copyrighted in 2025, titled A Tale of Competing Interests in the Alamo. Amongst the chaos, the 50th anniversary of the Alamo came and went without consequence in 1886. To combat the widespread ignorance, the Daughters of the Republic of Texas, an organization made up of descendants of veterans of the Texas Revolution, was founded in 1892. Clara Driscoll joined the DRT in 1898. The group attempted to purchase the 3-acre plaza and old convent, also known as the Long Barrack, adjoining the San Antonio de Valero mission, from private hands. Clara herself initially led a 5-year fundraising campaign on behalf of the Daughters of the Republic of Texas to cover the cost. But sadly, the steep asking price of $75,000 prevented the rescue attempt. Her time, love, and dedication fell short. Shaken, but not beaten, Clara offered the one thing the Alamo had rewarded her with her whole life: money. And according to the Daughters of the Republic of Texas Library, in 1905, Clara Driscoll put up most of the asking price herself, a whopping $65,000, allowing the DRT to take custodial care of the Alamo after years of work. The resulting legislation from Clara's efforts, entitled Providing for the Purchase, Care, and Preservation of the Alamo, passed the Texas House of Representatives and the State Senate at the end of January 1905. The act entrusted the Alamo to the custody and care of the daughters of the Republic of Texas, to be maintained by them in good order and repair without charge to the state, as a sacred memorial to the heroes who immolated themselves upon that hallowed ground. As president of the DRT, Clara Driscoll ensured the success of her efforts. The church and Long Barrack were saved from destruction, carefully rebuilt and refurbished to hold museum artifacts and handle tourists. In 1931, Clara Driscoll donated another $70,000 of her own funds to purchase more of the surrounding lands, today known as the Alamo Gardens. The Alamo became a national landmark in 1960, and today draws more than 1.6 million visitors annually, making it the most visited site in Texas, according to the Landmarks website. Tourists are invited to explore the meaningful history of the monument and remember the immortal heroes who died that Texas might not perish, as written on Clara's commemorative plaque inside the barrack. Clara Driscoll passed away after suffering a cerebral hemorrhage on July 17, 1945. Her body lay in state at the Missions Chapel in honor of her tireless dedication to preserving it, before being interred at the Masonic Cemetery in San Antonio. Clara continues to be an incredible figure in Texas history, overseeing the critical transition of one of our state's greatest tales from a mere story to a lasting legend. Her political and financial preservation efforts solidified the importance of remembering and engaging with history. There is no Texas without the Alamo, but there is no Alamo without Clara. The Alamo's senior curator and historian, Ernesto Rodriguez, did an interview about Clara's life in the 33rd episode of the Stories Bigger Than Texas podcast. In it, he reminds us that what makes the Alamo different is that it's women telling the stories. You have people who do not have a voice in traditional society that give us our traditional story. Clara Driscoll was only 22 when she stepped forward to save this iconic landmark, the same age I am, standing before you all today. Her ambition created the legend I was raised on as a little girl growing up in Austin. She made the Alamo immovable. She coated its walls in amber. She painted the picture of its future for generations to come. By sharing Clara's compelling story, we can contribute to the incredible conservation efforts she spearheaded more than 120 years ago. Clara wrote the legend then, but we write the legends for the future. Let the narrative reflect the wondrous work of a woman who loved Texas with a heart as brave as any soldier at the Battle of San Jacinto. And when we hear the iconic cry, "Remember the Alamo," let us also remember Clara. Thank you.
Our fourth speaker today is Jane Ann Carroll from Abilene Christian University. Her speech is entitled "Black Gold: How the Legacy of Oil Fueled the Stories of Texas Culture."
Once upon a time, oil in Texas was just something you used as wagon wheel lubricant. You didn't think much of it, and you certainly didn't base the state economy on it. As settlers made their way through Texas, stopping in the Big Thicket region for the medicinal waters, they would collect a viscous yellow-brown liquid and casually use it to grease stuck wheels. They found the spring's medicinal powers to be the wealth of the region, unaware of the vast oil reserves that lay under the salt domes of East Texas. Years later, Anthony F. Lucas and Patillo Higgins would speculate that under those strange geographic formations lay the key to enormous riches. In 1901, their theories proved true. Spindletop burst, spewing hundreds of thousands of gallons of oil into the air. Texas would never be the same. Since then, oil has become a driving force in the Texas economy, providing the resources to get through the Great Depression, fund higher education, fuel cultural efforts, and even rescue the United States from looming international conflict. The legacy of oil, the black gold, has driven the stories of Texas culture. Without those who profited from oil, Texas would not be able to boast the flourishing arts and culture scene, hospitals that provide critical care and cutting-edge research, and universities that provide top-quality education to students from all over the world. Before 1900, oil had been discovered in the northern United States, but their small wells could only produce 10 barrels a day. The University of Houston's Digital History Project states that Russia had massive amounts of oil, but with limited transportation methods, oil was not being considered a viable resource. In Texas, Corsicana was the leading oil producer with a record 50 barrels a day. Just days into 1901, Spindletop burst, spewing hundreds of thousands of gallons of oil into the air. Lucas, an Austrian immigrant and businessman, and Higgins, the one-armed speculator, had struck gold, black gold. Newspapers across the nation, from the New York Times to the Beaumont Enterprise, proclaimed the good news. The oil geyser had burst. Oil came gushing out at a rate of 100,000 barrels per day. In an article for Texas Our Texas under PBS News, Kristen McPike emphasizes how Spindletop changed the oil industry. It produced more oil in 9 days than the rest of the nation combined. Texas was able to break free from an agriculture industry dwindling in scale and enter the market as an oil giant. Following Spindletop, oil rigs began to pop up across the state. Beaumont, where Spindletop was located, quadrupled in size. Boom towns emerged as oil was spotted across the state. The sheer amount of oil meant that coal towns would slowly die as everyone left to make their riches in oil instead. Hastily built shacks became common living, and the small post offices, grocery stores, and schools quickly became overcrowded, with all the people trying to get to oil. Spindletop's success meant that everyone in Texas was looking to find the next pool of black gold. Years before, under the flag of the Republic of Texas, President Mirbeau B. Lamar set aside millions of acres of land, anticipating the start of a high-class educational system. Little did he know that the land that stretched across the state from Bryan to Marathon would actually fund these institutions. Dr. Johann A. Iden of the university's Bureau of Economic Geology insisted that there was oil in an underground fold of rock near Reagan County. His colleagues dismissed his theories due to the numerous failed derricks that dotted the region. Despite this, his theory prompted exploration in the region, and the Permian Basin oil fields were discovered. This area quickly became known for its lucrative oil industry, and the Texas University system capitalized on the newfound oil. Profits from university-designated land flowed into UT's pockets. The state legislature decided to assess the funds several times throughout the year, making sure that the University of Texas was able to sustain its institutional goals. Fund managers assessed the profits in 1931 and again in 1984 and decided there was more than enough money for one university. In fact, both the University of Texas, Texas A&M, as well as all of their satellite campuses could receive funds from these lucrative oil fields. To this day, both universities profit from the oil rigs in the Permian Basin that, according to Environment Texas Research and Policy Center, produces 43% of the nation's oil. By 1922, just 2 decades after Spindletop, speculators would drill all over Texas. Not a single region was safe from oil-seeking entrepreneurs. Nocona, located in North Texas, less than 20 miles from the Oklahoma border, found itself located in the middle of several oil fields. The booming oil industry brought with it hundreds of workers to man the rigs. The book, Backroads of Texas, tells the story of how in the self-proclaimed leather capital of Texas, Enid Justin, daughter of H.J. Justin, founder of Justin Boots, kept her family's boot business alive, capitalizing on this new workforce. Worried that no one would buy boots from a woman, she poured her energy into marketing. What she didn't expect was that her boots were perfectly suited to the needs of a new type of Texas cowboy, the wildcatter. The wildcatters were the ones to set up the rigs to pump oil right out of the ground. They needed protection for their feet and quality material that could withstand the brutal conditions of the oil field. Her factory boomed from this new workforce, and even during the Great Depression, she made over $10,000 in boots, which is almost $200,000 today. In the next 2 decades, a revolutionary field of oil extraction took over Texas. The first fully offshore rig was completed in the Gulf. While Louisiana claimed the first victory, the Texas Gulf Coast was more than ready to assist in the refining and transport of all the newly discovered oil bubbling up in the Gulf. Slowly, offshore rigs began to pop up as global demand for oil continued to rise. Even a recent 2022 study from the University of Houston finds that offshore oil now accounts for 30% of global conventional oil production. In addition to the plentiful oil, research completed on these offshore rigs has provided the Bureau of Ocean Management with data regarding shipwrecks, coral reefs, and minerals previously unstudied. Oil prices and demand fluctuated throughout the years, but in the 80s, oil saved not only Texas, but the United States from dependence on OPEC nations and the worldwide oil crisis. While many Americans still felt the pain of rising oil prices, the Manhattan Institute describes Texas's ability to ride out fluctuating tensions with nations in the Middle East that sometimes resulted in no foreign oil entering the U.S. The boom years of Texas oil production helped the U.S. build up a stockpile and smooth the transition to reliance on U.S. production of oil. While not all of the pain could be taken away, instead of crippling the United States with embargoes, Texas oil production was able to keep America running. Vast stores of oil meant enormous riches for anyone lucky enough to stumble on them. And the wealth that had previously created an economic powerhouse would also be used to create a cultural and educational mecca. Curator Amy Kelly of the Old Jill Art Center in Albany tells the story of how the Cook Ranch oil field in Shackelford County financed the building of the W.I. Cook Memorial Hospital in Fort Worth, which should become the Cook Children's Medical Center we know today. Hugh Roy Cullen focused his philanthropy on large gifts to the University of Houston and the Texas Medical Center. These gifts help fund research in the field of medicine that is still continuing today. While some were attending to the physical needs of their communities, others wanted to further the cultural scene in Texas. Oil families turned private collections into public museums, like the Old Jill Art Center in Albany, the Meadows Museum at SMU, and the Houston Museum of Fine Arts. The constant flow of oil into the performing arts led to the creation of the Houston Symphony and Ballet, Dallas Symphony Orchestra, and Bass Hall. These venues host performances from Broadway cast to international ballet companies, bringing the gift of the arts to the heart of Texas. Even during the Great Depression, when people found themselves without their banks, without crops, and without pay, everyday Americans could do little to alleviate their situation. But those who had struck black gold had wealth to go around. In the big country, J.G. Hardin dreamed bigger, providing funds to Mary Hardin Baylor, Hardin Simmons University, Howard Payne University, and my very own Abilene Christian University. He and other oil philanthropists saw the value of education, and even during a time of civil unrest, Ruth Leggett Jones used her oil wealth to help build community parks and pools and fund the education of Black Abilene students. Though the work out in the oil field was full of dirt and grime, from the start, everyone saw how shiny the black gold can make their lives. And Texas didn't need someone to tell them to drill, baby, drill. They had been doing it since the turn of the century. Descendants of the oil giants continue the legacy, allowing oil to permeate our culture, our museums, our schools, and even our hospitals. The story of Texas must be told in connection with the black gold that made much of the 20th century possible. From viscous wagon wheel lubricant to the fragrant balm that helps soothe the economic troubles of Texas, oil has remained a critical element in how we tell the story of Texas. Oil that flowed from the Panhandle to the Gulf Coast, from El Paso to Tyler, helped fund world-class museums, cutting-edge research hospitals, community parks and pools, and even the maroon and burnt orange. Oil flows through the veins of every Texan and remains the lifeblood in our Texas story.
All right, and our fifth and final speech today is by Jacqueline Garcia Torres, Abilene Christian University. Her speech is "The Lone Star to the Stars: How Texans Led the Race to Space."
Imagine it, a peaceful night sky. Americans asleep, unaware that history was about to change. Then, beep, beep, beep. A cold metallic heartbeat echoes through the sky. Sputnik was in orbit. October 4th, 1957 was more than just a date. It was a challenge, a test of American resolve. Texas was eager and ready to answer the call. From Spanish explorers under our first flag, to forging our republic, to the U.S. flag, our state didn't just grow, it led. It became an industrial and economic powerhouse, a place where imagination met innovation, a state that turned oil fields into launch pads and wild ambition into scientific achievement. Together, we'll explore how the Johnson Space Center made Texas its home and the key individuals whose contributions were critical in keeping the United States competitive in the space race. It was here, in the heart of Texas, that America found the courage to break the bonds of Earth and step boldly into space. Because that is what Texans do. We don't watch history, we make it. NASA's Space Task Group had one clear mission: put an American on the moon before the Soviets. This was a race between superpowers, with the winner gaining a military and strategic advantage in a world armed with nuclear weapons. Losing was not an option. In July 1961, NASA Administrator James E. Webb appointed a team to find the home of the new Space Center. An article on NASA's website clearly states the list of things they needed: barge transportation in ice-free waters, a mild climate, all-weather commercial jet service, a nearby Department of Defense airbase, a nearby university, at least 1,000 acres of land, and property that could be acquired at a reasonable cost. Simple, right? If you've ever driven through downtown Houston or its suburbs, you may wonder how they could even find one vacant acre, let alone 1,000. Yet a series of strategic deals, political connections, and a little Texas-sized ambition made it happen. But the land that the Johnson Space Center sits on has a history of its own, one that began long before NASA arrived. In 1905, businessman James Marion West arrived in Texas and quickly built a fortune that encompassed a 30,000-acre ranch on the land that now houses the Johnson Space Center. In 1938, West sold the land to Humble Oil. Enter George Brown, chairman of the Rice University's Board of Regents, a powerful businessman and a close ally of Vice President Lyndon B. Johnson. Brown was determined to bring NASA to Houston and was willing to donate 1,000 acres of land to make it happen. With the help of powerful Texans and the influence of Vice President Johnson, Houston emerged victorious. In September 1961, Houston was announced as the home of the new Manned Spacecraft Center, a $60 million facility that would house Mission Control, which would eventually give us the line, "Houston, we have a problem." The United States had finally made it to the starting line for the race that would take us to the stars. In 1963, the Manned Spacecraft Center officially opened, marking a new chapter in America's pursuit of space exploration. This was the time for space conquistadors who were ready to reach for the stars. One of the first major milestones for Houston's mission control came with the launch of the Gemini 4 in June 1965. Time magazine paints us a picture of the first American spacewalk, performed by San Antonio native Ed White. After floating freely in space for approximately 20 minutes, White was asked a second time to return to the spacecraft. Upon his return, White said that returning to the craft was, quote, the saddest day of my life. Ironic, considering what came next. Upon returning to the spacecraft, the hatch initially failed to close, a malfunction that would have been fatal during re-entry. Fortunately, his co-pilot James McDivitt managed to secure it just in time, allowing for both astronauts to return safely to Earth. White and McDivitt circled the Earth 66 times, coming just 1 day short of the Soviet Union's previous record. Every step of the way, it seemed the Soviets were still ahead. On January 27, 1957, tragedy struck during a pre-flight test for Apollo 1. Gus Grissom, Roger Chaffee, and Ed White were killed in a cabin fire. This devastating loss sent shockwaves through our nation, forcing many to ask, was the space race worth it? The National Air and Space Museum quotes Gus Grissom to answer that particular question. He said, quote, "We are in a risky business, and we hope that if anything happens to us, it will not delay the program. The conquest of space is worth the risk." Ed White never made it to space a second time, but he and the rest of the Apollo 1 crew are heroes who helped pave the way for the U.S. to reach the moon. Houston could not afford another loss. Making space travel safer wasn't just a goal, it was a necessity. This was a task for the brightest, the boldest, and the most determined, and among them was a woman whose calculations would change the course of history. Dorothy Lee had dreamed of the stars since childhood. Rocket STEM magazine states that she had a nickname as the human computer with a calculator. As a project engineer, her theoretical predictions about heat shield technology remain a critical component for space reentry, making space travel safer. As the race for dominance continued, with the United States and the Soviet Union neck and neck, all eyes were on Apollo 11 and its final push to the moon. With everyone watching the historic moon landing, there was one person focused on what couldn't be seen. Long blonde hair and a miniskirt weren't the typical uniforms at the Manned Spacecraft Center in 1965. But Frances Poppy Northcutt wasn't there to fit in, she was there to make history. At just 22 years old, the University of Texas graduate arrived with a degree in mathematics, ready to contribute to the space program. Her job title, computeress. Despite holding the same degree as her male colleagues, Poppy's title came with lower pay and less status. But Poppy persevered. 3 years later, during the historic Apollo 11 mission, she became the first woman to work in mission control. Her job, plan for the worst. As the astronauts circled the moon, they would lose communication while passing behind it. If their trajectory was even slightly off, disaster was inevitable. Poppy ran numerous calculations to ensure that the astronauts came back home. When the astronauts reappeared right on schedule, Poppy's job was done, and it was flawless. An LA Times article titled "The Women Who Helped Put Men on the Moon" stated that while she was focused on ensuring the safety of the mission, her colleagues focused on her, with a camera trained on her every move. America may have won the space race, but the race for equality would take much longer. Eventually, Poppy herself would take up the fight, switching careers to serve as a lawyer for the women's rights movement. On the day the world stood still, Houston was in motion, doing the job they trained for since Sputnik's first beep. At Mission Control, Poppy Northcutt and her colleagues guided every step, ensuring a safe journey from launch to retrieval. The New York Times declared, "Men walk on moon" on July 21st, 1969. Mission accomplished. Rocket STEM magazine notes that it took over 400,000 NASA workers, from seamstresses to engineers like Northcutt and Lee to the astronauts, to make the impossible real. Thanks to their efforts, the first lap of the space race was over, leaving America in the lead. After the historic Apollo 11 moon landing, NASA continued to break barriers in space exploration. NASA's website gives us a timeline. The 1970s saw the beginning of the Space Shuttle program, with the first shuttle, Columbia, ushering in a new era of reusable spacecraft. In the 1990s, NASA launched the Hubble Space Telescope. In the 2000s, NASA expanded its reach with the International Space Station. Today, NASA sets its sights on Mars, with the Johnson Space Center still at the heart of its space program. From the first beep of Sputnik to humanity's first steps on the moon, we can see how Texas played a pivotal role in shaping the course of NASA's history. How the visionaries, innovators, and pioneers who called this place home didn't just see history unfold, they made it. Houston became a place where minds like Dorothy Lee and Poppy Northcutt ensured that even in the face of tragedy, the flame of hope and progress never dimmed. As we venture further into space, reaching towards Mars and beyond, we must remember the history that got us here. That this land of resilience and bold ambition is where we create one small step for man and one giant leap for mankind.
Thank you. This concludes our final round. At this point, I'd like to introduce our afternoon judges. They were chosen for their knowledge of judging interscholastic forensic competitions and their knowledge of Texas history. We sincerely appreciate the time you've given and the expertise you bring to our contest. Please stand and be recognized as I call your name. With a wealth of experience in judging and coaching in interscholastic competitions on the state and national level, serving as our forensic judges today are Jana Riggin and Michelle Watkins. Serving as our topic judges today are Dr. Walter Benger and Dr. Monica Perales. And our fifth judge, serving in the capacity of past president of the Battle of Flowers Association, Mary West Traylor. You will find full bios on these judges in your programs. Judges, thank you for your service today. Lynn Thompson and Leland Lane, our judges chairman, will take you back to our judges room to continue and complete your deliberations at this time. Now for the moment we've all been waiting for. Our president, Betsy Zachary, assisted by Elizabeth Hetrick, will present certificates and checks to our second through fifth place winners. The first place winner will receive a certificate today. However, the first place prize of $5,000 will be presented following their speech at the annual Battle of Flowers luncheon at the Mays Family Center here at the Whitty on Thursday, May 1st during San Antonio's Fiesta Week. The following morning, they will ride in a beautifully decorated float through the streets of downtown, and today's winner will be an honored guest of ours at the Battle of Flowers 134th Parade, the third largest parade in the nation, and I might add, put on entirely by women. Contestants, please come forward when I call your name, and please remain standing here at the front for a few photographs afterwards. The fifth place winner of the Battle of Flowers Oratorical Contest and a $750 prize is Caitlin Schinkel from Baylor University. The fourth place winner of $1,000 is Colleen Wyrick from Texas Christian University. Thank you. In addition to their personal prize, our top 3 winners have won cash awards for their respective advisory university departments as well. The third place winner of $1,500 and $1,000 department award is Jane Ann Carroll from Abilene Christian University. The second place winner of $2,500 and a $1,500 department award is Susie Brewer of Texas Christian University. It is with great honor that we name the first place prize this year, the Mary West Ward Memorial Award, in recognition of Mrs. Ward, who envisioned and founded this remarkable contest 100 years ago. She is the great-great-aunt of past president and past Oratorical vice president, Mary West Traylor, and I'd like to invite you to come up and give out that award, please. Right here, please give a round of applause.
Please give a hearty round of applause to our first place winner of $5,000 and a $2,500 department award, Jacqueline Garcia Torres from Abilene Christian University.
As part of our centennial celebration, we are proud to have our past winners present a special Past Winners Centennial Award this year to support the continued success of the contest and the next generation of Texas collegiate orators. All of the former winners in attendance have cast their votes and selected a recipient to receive this prestigious honor and an additional $1,000 prize. We've asked our oldest past winner with us today, Juventino Guerrera Jr., winner in 1966, to please come forward and say a few words. And bestow this honor on one of today's outstanding orators.
And the winner of the 1000 Centennial Award is Colleen Warwick from TCU. They don't have the money, but somebody's got the money.
Thank you so much. Congratulations to you all. You've done a wonderful job. This concludes the 100th Annual Battle of Flowers Oratorical Contest. We so appreciate your attendance today and helping us as we mark this milestone. We hope you've enjoyed this program of outstanding contestants and speeches on Texas history. Please mark your calendars for next year, Friday, February 27th, 2026, as we unite again for the 101st Annual Battle of Flowers Oratorical Contest. Thank you so much.